Yes, we've discussed security, but now it's also important to discuss food security. This panel will aim to look at what the current scenario is, how can technology, we're speaking about technology impacting our daily lives. Earlier speakers were talking about digital India, and everybody knows that technology is a major disruptor, but how is it enabling and disrupting the food sector and, importantly, the food processing sector? So let's start off, let's kickstart things. Mr. Bhatia, first question to you. Now, I want to first start on the technology angle. So we've spoken about technology. Like I just said, it's important, it's disrupting every sector. How can it help in food processing, in farming? And I'm not talking about large farmers or large organizations. I'm talking about the small, medium, marginal farmers in those rural areas in India. How can technology help them?
I think the role of technology is to first remove or at least reduce the risks and uncertainties which Indian farmer is facing every day in his life. And it's more when it comes to small and marginal farmers. I represent PepsiCo, so few may know and few may not know. PepsiCo has got a very strong, deep linkage with farmers in India. We have got farmer relations with close to 13 states and 24,000 farmers. Our crop focus is potatoes, and I'll say 70% of those farmers are small and marginal. It's all potato growing areas where we work with, and it's from either UP or Punjab, Haryana, where the farm size is like 2 to 5 acres, to even smallest of the states in West Bengal, where farm size is 1 acre. So the thing is, all the solutions and technologies need to keep farmer at the center and develop an ecosystem and provide him all that what he needs to develop a good crop. And he can get money and got some money in his pocket.
But is that happening? What needs to be done there?
Yeah. So, okay, I mean, talking to my PepsiCo's journey as well, a few years back, around 30 years back, when PepsiCo started its operations, I mean, you know, and we were looking for, potato for our Lay's brand, Lay's and Uncle Chips. India grew, millions of tons of potatoes, but the kind of potatoes which processing industry needed, they were not there. Not even 0.5% of that were process friendly. They were all sizes, shapes, colors, and you could not process them. And we look at, say, when we're looking at farmers, farmers were small, they lacked education. They also did not have access to good varieties, good seeds. The seeds they were buying were from local trader or a cold store owner. Didn't know, what they grew. They also had to face a lot of agricultural risk. Droughts, floods, diseases, whatnot, right? Sometimes get good crop, sometimes do not get good crop. If it doesn't get a good crop, then he, then doesn't get his money. And sometimes when he gets good crop, there's glut in the market. Yeah? And we have seen sometimes when farmers have got bumper yields, there was so much potato that they actually had to throw it in the street. The thing is, the whole thing said that farmer always lived into that vicious circle, where he did not have any extra money to invest in any good practices. So when we said that if we have to build a sustainable supply chain for PepsiCo, we needed, needed to get into a thing where farmer secures his income. And I think we were the very first ones to start a contract farming program where we also had assured buyback price for farmers. Okay. Saying that, yes, you are dealing with a perishable crop, but I ensure your per kilo delivery. Okay. So it is like, 8 rupees, 10 rupees kilo, I do it.
So, sorry, I just want to come in on that point. I'll come back to you on this, but I just wanted to get Professor Dr. Shekhar in on this point about what you were talking about, the price volatility. We were also, Dr. Shekhar, talking about this a little earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So can I complete?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So thing is, once farmer knows that he's assured of a returns. Then we look at, okay, how do we ensure that he is growing his crop well? Is he got access to good varieties which are market linked or has got market friendly, and he's got a good seed? So we had collaboration, or we had got a support from Central Potato Research Institute. We got their varieties which were process friendly, and we had also our own research varieties which we brought from our own research facilities in US and Peru. We we had our own seed facilities, and it takes almost 5 years to develop a good seed, disease-free seeds. So these are agricultural science or technologies which farmers needed to grow a good crop. And beyond that, I mean, there were many things which were called agro-mechanizations. Today, a small acre farmers don't have access to things like tractors. He still does the ridges by hands or bullocks. And I mean, the fallout of that is, when there is small rain which happens, I mean, potatoes go green. I mean, we say that around 25 to 30% of the potatoes which happen in West Bengal, they turn green and they are unfit for human consumption.
Right.
So look for technologies. I mean, those farmers do not want 200 horsepower tractor. They want something very easy to afford, cheap solutions, which can be
adopted easily by them at a low cost for them.
And we co-develop with farmers.
Okay, that's good to know. That's the important part. Dr. Shekhar, when we talk about, I wanted to talk about the volatility of prices, and you and me were talking about this earlier also. This is something which kind of is really a pain point for the sector, and it impacts the entire chain. In your research, in your experience, what are your thoughts on this? Because of course, the price of the raw material is extremely important for the food processing industry and of course for the farmer. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, to me, actually, processing is important for two reasons. One is obviously helping farmer realize higher incomes. The second important point is price stabilization. Because some of the commodities which are seasonal in nature, Bhatia has just mentioned potato, but onion, tomato, or other commodities where you have these huge gyrations in prices. Coming to your question about what are the factors behind this kind of volatility? In fact, we some time back, our institute, I belong to Institute of Economic Growth from Delhi University, and we were doing some joint work with International Food Policy Research Institute, where we looked at inflation patterns, food inflation patterns across all the states for major commodities. What we discovered is that these fruits and vegetables and pulses, these are the commodities which show huge volatility month on month. And they are also higher on the percentage increase in prices also, persistence increase in prices. And one of the factors that has been found is that it is basically the lack of storage and cold chain facilities for most of these fruits and vegetables. In fact, it will be very shocking to know that nearly 5 to 16% of our fruits and vegetables are wasted. So that translates into a huge, in absolute numbers, it's very huge. Not only that, you'll be surprised to know that something that we have this support price mechanism in place for, that is rice and wheat, even there, the wastage is to the extent of 5 to 6%, both wheat and rice. That's huge. When you look at the overall production of rice, which is 106 million hectares, and 5% of that is roughly, it's huge, really. So almost like 5 to 6 million tons is getting wasted. So this is where the very important, the role of processing and also this storage and transportation, all these things come into picture. That's where actually Mr. Bhatia's point is very valid, because small and marginal farmers do not possess the wherewithal, particularly the knowledge and the other key ingredients. So that's where some kind of aggregation of their produce, either in the form of farm producer organizations or farm producer companies, or something like contract farming, where actually there is a whole hand-holding by the private sector. These kinds of arrangements need to be evolved. Without that, actually small and marginal farmers acting in isolation as individual entities, I don't think they will be really sustained.
Okay. Mr. Sardana, I would like to get you in on this point. We're talking about food, and in your line of business, you're also interacting a lot with a lot of farmers on ground. The concern is we're a growing nation, population is increasing, and of course we need to feed all those mouths. Can fertilizers or other technologies, in your experience, how are you seeing things pan out so that A, produce is increased, be at least the byproducts, like you were talking about earlier before the panel, byproducts can be reused so that the farmer has some more money in his or her hands. Just wanted to get your thoughts.
Thank you for this important discussion. And let me compliment what Mr. Maroof was saying in earlier session on strategic planning for the country. And I think what he was mentioning is also relevant to food security. We were talking about defense security and food security. Yeah. And one thing which he mentioned is that India is an IT superpower is a myth. Another myth is that India is food secure. So these two myths put the India into a very vulnerable situation. Let me put two statistics and then we build which technology we need and from where to start. By 2024, when the present government will complete its tenure, India's population will be 145 crores. Agriculture land India is going to remain 14 crore hectare. Land per person availability for food production is going to be only 100 square meter. In 100 square meter, you have to produce food for 365 days. Average person needs about a ton of a food for minimum healthy lifestyle. Do the reverse calculation, it means India to ensure food security needs on an average 10 tons food production per hectare. There is nowhere this averaging anywhere in the world. It means whatever technologies are available and countries are using, developed, underdeveloped, whatever you think of, nobody has 10 tons food per hectare around the year. And this is a challenge for us, that even existing technologies cannot solve your problem. Considering with that approach, now issue comes up is we are talking of processing. If you are competing, no processing technology, no processing industry ever survived in the world when you compete with table variety or with the fresh consumption. Because minute you go into competition with the table variety, the prices shoot up. And that makes the whole investment unviable. And this we have to understand fundamental when we are talking about food security and food processing. Now issue comes up is then what is the way forward? So what is the way forward is very simple. First, ensure that what India needs. If you do not have enough to compete or provide the basic food to the citizens, forget about food processing because raw material price will be so high that you will not be able to process and sustain. Business means sustainability with profit. Just setting up a factory is not a business. Selling with profit is a business. If your raw material is higher than the world price, will you process or will you import? Let me give you one example of this year, and that puts things into perspective. Everybody is saying inflation is under control, farmer is enjoying, doubling farmer income. Let me put a live statistic, go to internet and cross-check. Maize price in India was 13 to 14 rupees a kg 8 months back. Today it is 24. 80 to 100% rise in maize prices, which is a fundamental raw material for animal feed to feed the livestock sector. And we are saying farmers to move away from agriculture to livestock for better income. Raw material prices have gone up. The cost of production of poultry bird is 85 and farmers are selling at 60. Every kg they are losing 20 rupees. Nobody is talking, nobody is discussing this inflation and problems. Now with this equation, Supreme Court says that roadside slaughtering should be banned and set up a processing lines. Government is dictating for hygiene and various reasons. If I go into processing, my cost of production is going to be 150. International price, I can easily get poultry bird at 100. Should I set up? Should I
it's
install?
a catch-22 situation.
That is what I'm saying. Unless you have a raw material security, which is cost effective, talking of food processing is misleading ourselves.
So then is it about getting, like you're saying, if it's tough to grow, to get the output from that, we've got one of the resources that is limited is the land. Obviously, the land is not increasing. In fact, I believe it's even being reduced more and more. Then what is the way ahead? I mean, I open to the panel. Then how do we grow more?
We have to decide very honestly and accept that we are not food secure. Then we set up a priority, what we can grow and what we should not grow or cannot grow. Today, 70% of edible oil which we consume is imported. India is the only country where per capita income is going up and food security is coming down or protein intake is coming down, and you have seen yesterday's. We have moved down in hunger index, not moved up.
Yes.
This is a reality. Now, fact of the matter is, we have to pick up the priorities. You cannot do everything. Yes, what Bhatia Saab's organization has done is a sensible thing. That existing potatoes which you are producing is of making potato curry in your kitchen, not fit for processing. They brought a technology of a better potato varieties which can be processed, because processing needs a different set of parameters than what you are consuming in kitchen. Likewise, similarly, for everything you have to do a SWOT analysis on every crop. Problem with agriculture is that agriculture in India is a political activity, it is not an economic activity. Because our all policies are very confusing. We say agriculture. The fact of the matter is, banana is different than apple. Apple is different than grain, wheat. Wheat is different than rice. Rice is different than maize. And in every crop, millions of farmers are involved. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to fit one shoe all to everyone. This will never work.
So
that is why all farmers are in crisis.
So the important part is to create the awareness, which we are hoping to start
focused.
with here.
You have to pick up the crops,
and set
do
the
analysis and devote
policy.
your attention there. Don't do everything.
Right.
I think, I get your point in saying that, I mean, our population is going to increase. I mean, today we are 130 crores plus. I mean, tomorrow it will be 140, 150 crores, and land mass is going to reduce, right? So we have to have technologies which produce more. Plus, the thing is, like, what is produced is also saved and it's fed to people, right?
That's the other thing.
And we say that mostly, I mean, coming from fruits and vegetable industry, which we process, if we say 25 to 30% gets wasted, I mean, that's also criminal waste. Right? That's where probably some of the technology. So we have to do every bit, produce more and conserve and feed to people.
That is one concern that's also been addressed at times, is this the lack of the infrastructure in the supply chain. So whether it's cold chain warehouses or even in the end is about roads that help speed in the transport of products. Are you seeing developments there? Of course, that's a major pain point, but are things heading towards the right direction?
No, I think there was a starting point. I think, again, I'm taking from giving a potato experience. I mean, I think we were the first ones to set up a very high-tech cold store in India in Calcutta, way back in 2010. I mean, today, if you look at, say, a potato, I mean, just after 5 months or 6 months, it loses its size, shape, and then it's basically gets sold at, say, 1 rupee kilo or 50 paisa kilo somewhere, right? This store, I mean, has got a proper a hygiene, it has got ventilation, air conditioning, it's humidification, everything. We can store potatoes up to, say, 11 months. And we have ourselves put 3 stores, and I've seen now many people putting many such stores out there. Now, I'm not saying, like, today, it would be just be carrying, say, 3 or 4% of the total storage, but at least the beginning was made. And we need to intensify this effort and say more and more stores become like that, so that we can save our perishable fruits and vegetables, which are so very important and, I mean, difficult to grow, and will be more and more difficult to grow in future as land would be decreasing and we'll have more mouths to feed.
Right. Dr. Yes.
In fact, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Sardana's point that we need to really decide what our priorities are. In the sense that there is clear consensus on where the consumption patterns are shifting. They're shifting away from these primary cereals like rice and wheat towards high value, something like fruits and vegetables, milk and other crops. So what needs to be done is that we have to slowly, not in a sudden policy shift, but in a gradual manner, we have to shift our focus away from these rice and wheat kind of crops, this huge emphasis on these things, and slowly move it. Now then coming to milk, actually milk products consumption is increasing because of higher income growth and also urbanization. And obviously these issues like feed availability to the animals, this becomes important, what kind of feeds. And that's where the policy should focus now, what is required. So I see this kind of thing missing because looking back at the last 5 years after this government took over, I don't remember as an economist working in this area for so long, I don't recall any other government launching so many programs in such a short span of time for agriculture. In fact, they started with something like Krishi Sichai Yojana, and they're all over, Fasal Bima Yojana, and you name it and it's there, about irrigation, insurance. But the point is there is no continuity in thinking.
Yes.
So if you remember, in 2017 budget, there was something like Electronic National Agricultural Market. That was basically to link all the agricultural markets in the country. So that means basically the focus was to move towards a market-based system where let farmers discover higher prices. Then the very next year, they come and announce something called a PM Asha, which is basically raising the minimum support prices over 150% of your cost of production. So what does it mean? You are coming back to state support, right? Now when these two things, there was no connect actually between these two. Then after these two things really did not yield the desired results, you come back to what is called a direct income transfer, PM Kisan, and you give out 6,000 rupees per year. So this kind of disconnect, I mean, there's no lack of, there's no continuity in their thinking, so that's where I think the policy should refocus itself, and I think this is very important. Prioritize your areas, what you should produce, what you should not produce. There are enough sources, for example, oils, you have enough sources worldwide. There's no need to produce oils at a very high cost. Whereas pulses are produced by very few countries. So we cannot really depend on the international market. In the same way, you need not produce so much rice when you are unable to export. In a sense, you are the largest exporter. India is the largest exporter today. But the thing is, there are very few countries which actually import because all the countries are producing rice.
Right.
So this is something, actually some kind of rethinking is urgently required. And what I'm really disappointed to see is even in this current scenario when the economy is really in a downturn and the government is doing all kinds of actually discussions with analysts, there's hardly any analysis on agriculture. I haven't seen any kind of discussions with agricultural economists or anywhere. There's no focus there. Actually, that's very important because 50% of the people are in.
I mean, and that's actually the aim of this platform, is to get experts like you to share your thoughts so that we can take things ahead and make a better roadmap for the way ahead. We're just running out of time. One last question to Mr. Sardana and then also to Mr. Bhatia on the same thing. Is now agriculture, farming is not just a standalone thing. It also needs to be sustainable. So whether it's for the farmer, whether it's for the land that he or she is growing crops on. In your experiences, how are things changing for the better? Are they changing for the better? How are they changing for the better?
Two good points, just to highlight. One point you raised on the infrastructure side. It's also very important to understand that wherever you need ice cream, you get it. But you don't have an infrastructure for onions.
Right.
What this indicates? That wherever there is a money in the game, people will create infrastructure. And government never interferes in ice cream business. Whenever government interferes, as an investor, I will say, move out. We don't know what they will think tomorrow. Get up with some new idea and put me in trouble.
Right.
So wherever government is coming forward, as an investor, I'm moving out. So this government has to accept that they are not the solution to the market. They sometimes create problem for the market. Because of their political reasons, they create economic problems, which they don't appreciate and accept also. One. Second point, which is more important, is agriculture we always feel कि जिसको कुछ नहीं आता यार तू खेती कर ले. Fact of the matter is today agriculture is more knowledge intensive even than IT. Let me put one example and then I'll close. When I export grapes from India, how many checkpoints I have to consider to become successful or even eligible for export? 205 points.
Wow.
Checkpoints on auditing. How many you do in software? If you know one, C++ and you become a knowledge worker. For farmer, I have to know about soil, I have to know about seed, I have to know about fertilizer, I have to know about insects, insects behavior, weather problems, harvesting challenges. During the process, which is everything is in open air, things can go control. Again, I have to manage it back. Hundreds of things a farmer learns. Still, it is not a knowledge industry. This is nothing but a mental bankruptcy of our society and all of us collectively, that we never respected agriculture. And if you don't respect anything, you will only get food insecurity and you will become a begging bowl for the world, because you cannot feed 145 crore population by 2024 when Modi Sahib will close his second inning. With your domestic resources, you will be heavily import dependent. And in edible oil itself, my calculation is India will be paying $40 billion just to import edible oil. How
Right.
much profit
Right.
you will earn in by exporting software? Calculate it, then you see, you will be net deficit.
Great. So we're just about out of time, but yes, Mr. Bhatia, your last
Just,
quick
I mean,
closing
the problem is grave and severe, but I mean, there are certain good examples as well. I mean, we have also seen, and I'll on a environment sustainability part, I'll say focus on water,
Yes.
which also has been a focus with the Jal Shakti Ministry, which Government of India has created. It calls for judicious and optimal use of water. We have seen certain villages in Maharashtra where the water was scarce and people could not use water for irrigating their crop. I mean, maximum 10% of the irrigation could have happened. But now, I mean, we have seen people adopting drip irrigation. There has been subsidy by government. Banks helped it, like, corporations like us also chipped in. Today, I see many of the villages out there have got 100% crop done with drip irrigation. And I mean, I think these are the solutions. And then there were ponds which were created, which could have a catchment area where the rainwater could have been, was actually harvested. And people could use all their farms with drip irrigation. I'm saying, so these are, say, few examples, but then these need to be multiplied.
Of
I
course,
know
these-
we have got issues, but then, I mean, we need to make a beginning somewhere, and we need to make a nice beginning and make sure that there are solution sets available.
Well, they say that dane dane pe likha hota hai khane wale ka naam. So I'm hoping that here we've started a conversation. We can take this ahead to better prosperity in the food sector. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of the panel. Thank you.